from the BBC World Service in association with ABC and All India Radio. This is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to the first Stumped of 2021, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell, wishing you a very happy new year from Melbourne. And it's a much lower key New Year everywhere, I suspect. Here in Melbourne, the city's traditional fireworks display was cancelled some time ago due to COVID-19. Whilst the vaccine's being rolled out back in the UK, Australia are waiting before they start any programme. And that means, in the meantime, that small outbreaks are still leading to border closures, and cricket is racing to stay ahead of the closures and the clusters.
Hello there, Jim Maxwell in Sydney. Happy New Year to everyone. Fireworks going off overnight, but no one able to see it other than on TV or through binoculars. All sorts of restrictions in place. And it's been a bit of a damp squib for the last few days because it's been raining. And apart from all the other issues coming up to the Sydney test in terms of how many can go and the COVID restrictions and clusters around the place, the big problem might be simply the weather. It's forecast to rain.
Well, that's a pity. I'm Charu Sharma for All India Radio in Bangalore, where I must confess it rained a bit this morning, which was a little sad. To all those who normally listen to Stump, thank you so much. Happy New Year, and we wish 2021 is a whole lot better than 2020. Good to be on the show. All I can say is that the Indian boys did a little something special in the city of Melbourne. I suppose we'll have opportunity to talk about it in the show.
Well, that's where we're going to start, Charu. Where else would we start? But, yep, a huge thank you to all of our listeners who have been with us throughout this crazy year of 2020. And we've never been short of things to talk about on Stumps when cricket is concerned around the world. So that is something. But, yeah, let's pick up and start with that second test between Australia and India's men, because after being skittled out for just 36 in Adelaide, India bounced back in some style.
Smith edges caught leg slip. He departs for a duck, and Ashwin picks up the wicket of Steve Smith again.
Cummins bowls to him. Rahane plays it away through backward point for 4. An innings of the highest quality.
Line it is to Bumrah. He's going for a big heave, big top edge into the leg side. Now this should be taken. It's in the air, and it is taken. But India are all out for 326.
Ashwin again. Labuschagne off the edge, caught! At first slip, Ashwin strikes again. Australia strikes more trouble.
Smith's 8 not out. Bumrah down the leg side. He's bowled him. Does the bail come off? It has.
Jadeja, who bowls very quickly, hit on the pad. Ball popped into the onside, taken. Wade is out.
Siraj in, bouncer swung away to the vacant leg side region. Oh, and he's been caught. And Cameron Green throws his head back on the cusp of a maiden test 50. He's out for 45.
Lyon comes in again. Quicker ball, pull shot. Misfield from Hazelwood, got a hand on it. Rahane trots through for the single. And India win the second test in Melbourne. A famous victory for the tourists.
Famous win indeed. India winning by 8 wickets to level the 4-test series at 1 apiece. So, Charu, to use a golfing phrase, you have the honour here. One of India's greatest overseas displays, would you say, especially after what happened in Adelaide?
Alison, I would be delighted to tee it up. What a tremendous occasion for all of India. Written off completely after that crazy 1 hour, 36 all out. The knives were out. All the critics were saying, well, what kind of an Indian team is this? A historic low. So I really think it's all about the timing of the comeback. It happened immediately in the next test match. Had this happened later, perhaps, this incredible emphatic win, it may not have had the same impact. But to come bouncing right back after that defeat, I think all of India and fans around the world are delighted with what the Indian team's been able to manage. And it's not just a question of winning a test match here. Of course, it's winning in Australia against Australia, always difficult. It's great for the series because it's now level, so there's plenty of interest for the rest of the series as well. But more importantly, I think a lot of India, Alison, is using this test match win as a symbol of the new, resilient, aggressive India. Not failing, but getting up and bouncing back. And I think the youth of India is channelizing this. The media is channelizing this win as something that represents the new India, which is full of fire and can take criticism, can bounce back at will. So it's been a truly, well, historic perhaps is not the right word, because India's won before in Australia the last time around. That was truly historic. But this has been a celebrated comeback. And especially with a few of the top Indian players missing, you could argue that it was doubly difficult, but the Indians did it. There's also a lot of light shining on the new stand-in captain, because 3 matches played, 3 matches won. He's done a terrific job with a very different style, mind you. But I'm sure Kohli wouldn't mind. The rest of India, of course, delighted in this comeback of India, which is still making waves in our part of the world.
Well, what of the Australian perspective then? Jim, I'll bring you in a moment, but just have a listen first to what Australia's captain Tim Paine had to say after the defeat.
I think both test matches we haven't batted well enough, and in this one we were really sloppy in the field as well. So, dropped 4 or 5 catches. Looking back now, if it makes 100 runs difference, then we're right in the game. With the attack that we've got, we're showing we're having no problems creating chances and taking wickets. So we've just got to score enough runs, and if we do that, then I think we'll go well in these last 2 test matches.
How deflating was it for the attack, given they'd done so much good work in the test and the plans had been executed so well, to see those chances go down?
Oh, yeah, I don't think it's ever great to be running in as hard as they do and having dropped catches go down left, right and centre. But, they realise it's part of the game. It happens. Obviously, we train hard for it not to happen, but that's just part of the game, and you have to move on. And as I said, we'll try and rectify it going into the next test match.
Well, Tim Paine speaking to Alistair Nicholson then. Jim, we did miss you in the commentary box, first of all, during that test match. Of course, the travel restrictions with the border meant that you weren't able to come from Sydney into Melbourne. But did Tim Paine just about sum that up? I mean, the dropped catches, of course, but batting's been a question mark for a while, hasn't it, with the Aussies? But Steve Smith's form of late and Labuschagne have covered it up for some time also.
For quite some time, yes, and I think Australia's performance has been undermined by the inability of those around Smith and Labuschagne, and with Warner being out injured, to produce enough runs to be competitive. And you could tell by the tone of Tim Paine's voice that he was very disappointed. And the selectors have reacted, of course, and there will be a few changes. But that's, I think, been the big problem from the start for Australia, not having Warner. And for some reason, Smith is all of a sudden mortal, and he can't get to double figures. So, that and the slip slop in the field, putting all those catches down. One thing normally follows the other, I suppose, in a game of cricket. You have a bad day with the bat, and then even though your bowlers try to get you into the game, you get butterfingered. But look, can't take it away from India. I mean, that would have to rank as one of the greatest comeback victories in the history of the game, particularly when teams are away from home and all the bubble stuff that's been going on for India and Australia. It can't be good for the health, but somehow they showed themselves up under some excellent leadership from Rahane and dominated the game. And once they got ahead, Australia, even in the second innings, never really looked like setting India a target. But great stuff with 2 tests to go. Let's hope that they're as good and as incident-free and spectator-friendly as the first 2 appear to have been.
Well, we will pick up a little bit more on Rahane's captaincy in particular, because that was a real feature with him stepping into the shoes of Virat Kohli. Let's get a further perspective from the India side before we get into that, because after the match I caught up with India's former batsman and captain, Sunil Gavaskar. Sunny, brilliant bounce back from India. What has pleased you most about the way they won this match?
I think the whole determination that was seen from the entire team, the way they carried themselves, there was nothing negative from day one. The fact that they got the Australians out early in the first innings also was a big contributory factor. And most importantly, in that first hour, they got those 3 wickets. If Australia had got off to a start of maybe 80 or 90 for no loss, and with the ball going past the outside edge, the batsman being beaten, sometimes a negative mindset can creep in. Oh, things are not going our way. We all out for 36. We got the great deliveries. We are bowling great deliveries, but the Australian batsmen are not nicking them. All those things can come, and particularly when you're on a tour, and they've been away from home for quite a while. So the fact that the wickets fell certainly helped in that feeling that, look, we are still in the game, we can do something about it. And then they didn't let up at all.
It always seemed a big ask for Ajinkya Rahane to step into the shoes of Virat Kohli, but he seemed a natural.
Yes, he's captained India twice before when Kohli has not been available. And he's won both times. And this is the third time now that he's done three back-to-back. I mean, three times he's been captain and 3 times India has won. So yes, I think his leadership also was a big factor. He's a calm, cool, collected leader, not very demonstrative, not what the modern word is, in your face kind of thing. And to every captain has his own way of leading and motivating a team. And his seemed to be to let the bowlers do their thing, and occasionally going to them and having a chat with them about the kind of field that they would want, maybe whether they would want an extra over or two. Particularly when you talk to the fast bowlers, you check with them: are they tired? Do you want an extra over? Can you bowl an extra over? And that was a hot day. Day one of Melbourne was a very hot day. So all those little things seem to have a very good effect on the team, a very calming effect. They didn't seem to be, they were not frenetic like we sort of saw in earlier times. Not even in Adelaide. In Adelaide also they were pretty relaxed because the wickets were falling. So his captaincy had a huge role to play. And then the fact that they'd selected a very good team, 5 bowlers, picking Jadeja as a spinner, but as somebody who could bat at 7, Ashwin at 8, gave their batting a bit of depth. They had a little bit of depth in the bowling as well. And then their fielding, they took all the catches, which they had missed at Adelaide.
1-1 going into the third test then. The series is beautifully poised. What things do India need to think about between now and test number 3?
I think, well, there are 2 major concerns straight away. One is the opening batting position and Umesh Yadav's injury. If Umesh is now not available to play in Sydney, who do they bring in? Do they bring in Saini, who's already part of the squad? Or do they bring in, say, a Natarajan, who we saw bowling on the last day at the ground? Not so. He would have definitely bowled in the nets. But when somebody starts to bowl on the ground, you tend to sort of get a fair idea or an indication of what team management is thinking. And then Rohit Sharma comes back. That's a big plus. So Rohit Sharma comes back, what would you do? I would personally still stick with Mayank Agarwal. And he and Rohit Sharma and Mayank Agarwal open the batting. And Shubman Gill bats at number 5. This is what I would look to do. But again, it's up to the team management.
So that was India great Sunil Gavaskar with his thoughts. Charu, on Rahane's captaincy then, here's a question for you. Is Virat Kohli's captaincy, his manner, his demonstrative manner where you see all emotions across the face during the course of a session in the field, is that the new India, or is it Ajinkya Rahane and his quiet confidence?
Good question. For me, it's always quiet confidence, and I've said enough on various news channels the last few days after the famous win about how I would rather that new India be quietly confident, full of the usual humility. And I'm no custodian of the Indian heritage and culture, but I think that's far more suited to the average Indian. Well, I mean, who knows who's the average Indian, though? However, I must confess that in the public domain, it does seem like this uber aggression is what the new Indian youth want themselves to be seen as. So for them and for the rest of the nation, it looks like the Virat Kohli model is far more appreciated because of its in-your-face nature. Take that. We're no longer inferior. We're no longer, somebody you can push over. So I think that's far more appealing to the average Indian cricket fan, or perhaps even beyond the cricket fan. But personally, all I can add is I'd much rather have the Rahane model because I think it just calms everybody down. I think Dhoni was very much a Rahane as well, where the players didn't quite feel the pressure coming in from the captain. And of course, more importantly, Alison, it's really all about also performing, leading from the front, and which means scoring runs. As long as Kohli is scoring runs, and he scored plenty, I think people will overlook the mannerisms. Here too, in Rahane's case, he's only had to lead in 3 matches so far, won all 3. But in the long term, I suppose these things even out. But I'd much rather have a captain, personally speaking, and of course there are plenty of other takers for this as well, who doesn't put his own philosophy onto the rest of the players, allows them to breathe and just be themselves, because we are talking about the best players in the land. They are the part of the national team. And, you know, to suggest that they would do it for captain, my captain, you say so, I will try and get 5 wickets. No, I know I'm capable. And I don't need that pressure of trying to be like you. So I think somebody who's calmer and quieter just allows players to be themselves, which perhaps allows them to play to their potential. So I'd much rather, it's a personal thought, take the Rahane philosophy for its calm. And there are players, I think Gavaskar also obviously alluded to that, and there are people who would appreciate that. But for the average Indian, I suspect Kohli is the way to go, and they identify with that new-found aggression that the youth of the nation seem to love.
Talking of players being themselves, I don't know whether you saw the photograph. I think it was posted by Ashwin immediately after the match, where a group of the senior players were standing up against the white brick wall of the visitors' dressing room with the honours board above them, and it's Jadeja, Yadav, Pujara, Rahane, Ashwin and Bumrah, all just in super casual pose, but unposed, if you know what I mean. One in flip-flops, one in trainers, one in, all in their training gear still, but just looking utterly like the guy on the street. It is a really lovely photograph of the real senior core of this India team, to show their togetherness, I thought. It has been fantastic to spend the year chatting to the both of you, and to all of our listeners for listening throughout a crazy 2020. Well, that's it for this week's Stumped here on All India Radio. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter using the hashtag BBC Stumped. Thanks to Chari Sharma and Jim Maxwell, our guest Sunil Gavaskar, and to you for listening. Happy New Year. Bye for now.
Stumped is a BBC sport production for the BBC World Service in association with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and All India Radio.